welcome back everybody. Still working on the MR2, still got a lot of projects left to do. Trying to get done with the brake cables, with the emergency brake cables. I got my 2 new ones in, which is great, but discovered that getting them out is a little more difficult than you might think. They go over the top of the gas tank, which is pretty hard to get to. But I also have to get into my gas tank because, well, one, it's got 300,000 miles on it, so I think it's probably time to change the fuel filter, which is in the tank. But I also have a gas gauge that goes up to 3/4 and then just sits there. So I think because it moves just fine, I have a feeling it's just a stuck gauge inside the tank, a float inside the tank. So I'm going to get in there, open that up. Have to open it up anyways if I'm going to drop the tank to put the emergency cables in. So two things are kind of tied together. So let's see how this goes. All right, so this is the brand new brake cable, one of the two, one for the driver's side. And you can see it's got one bracket there, one bracket here, and then one bracket, and then kind of a gasket where it goes through the firewall into the cabin, and then this is where it connects onto the brake cable, or the brake handle inside the car. So this particular one bracket is on top of the gas tank. This one and this one you can get to, and I've done that. There's the old one hanging there. And the other bracket is right there, right kind of just above the, right as you go in. So the easiest way I have a feeling is going to be to pull that tank. I know some people have cut the old wire, kind of just cut the old wire and then just fed a new one through, but I'm not sure how you do that with the gas, with this on there. And so I got to get into the tank, so we'll see how that goes. But this one moves really easy. The cable goes in and out really easy. The other one doesn't move at all. So once we get this done, we'll have some working emergency brakes, which are kind of an important thing. All right, so here I am on the passenger side. I guess I got the center console out. I've got the plastic trays out on the bottom here. Obviously that side with the computer and everything. This side, there's the how you get to the fuel tank and the filter and the pump and the float. So doesn't look like anybody's ever been into it before, so be the first time. And now these little covers and stuff, you'll figure out how to get them off. There's just some screws along here, some screws in the back, and then you just got to wrestle them out. They're all intertwined together, so it's a little bit of a challenge yanking and pulling to get them out, but you'll get it out of there. So I'm going to start pulling this thing apart. The big thing is there's usually some sealant on these that seals it down, which can be a little challenging to get off, but see what I can do. All right, so peeled this up. Actually, the sealant's all there around the edges, but it wasn't actually sealed down all that well, so it came up pretty easy. So now the big trick, we just got to start disconnecting things. You got a couple of connectors here, the little fuel line connector here, which has a little tab in the back you pull out, and then we'll be able to pull this right out. All right, so I got them all disconnected. So you got the 2 electrical connections, is easy enough, and then you're able to get the cover pretty much out of the way. This connector right here, this fuel line, it is just held in by this little clip. So you just pop that out on the side. I just pulled it all the way out so it was just easier to get out of the way. And then it'll lift out. This one, mine was a little tricky. You got to get these tabs to push in order to get over the lip. I used a little pry and I was able to get them off. So got that off. A little bit of gas came out, not much. So then you can just lift this right out. And all the gas out of it, and then we can go change the filter and see if we can figure out what's wrong with that float. All right, so here it is. I'm starting to get it apart. That's the ring that holds the whole thing that the screws go through. That's the top portion there, and it just has little tabs, so you just wedge them out of each of the tabs. You can go right on the top and work them all out, and there you go. A couple little connectors, easy enough. There's my new one, and there's the sending unit. So going to try out the sending unit, see if I can figure out why it seems to move okay. So we'll see if it's any good. All right, so the way you test this, as I understand it, you hook your ohms meter up to, well, black to black, and in this case red to the yellow one in the middle seems to be the right one. And then it doesn't really matter so much what the reading is, but that it changes as you move the lever, and mine changes right on up through all the way to the end and then all the way back. So oops, so it's not the sending unit, so it's something else that's getting in the way that's keeping that gas gauge from working. So unfortunately that would have been pretty easy, so we'll see. That's going to be an ongoing thing, but at least I've tested and gotten out of the way. Now I can change the filter out, and we'll be done with that. All right, so a couple tricks about this thing. This little gadget right here, the float, it has this little tab, locks into the side, and it has these different stages that it could be at, but it has these notches that lock it in. So you just put them in these bottom two, slide it up, and then that will snap in, which is the case right here. So it'll look like that, right kind of at the lowest setting. Then the motor comes out. This little clip is on the bottom, so you just pinch those off, pop that off, and this is just pressure fit in with the little gasket at the top. So you just push it out from there, and that comes out, and now there's the old filter and the new one. Put it all back together again, and we'll be good to go. All right, so there it is, put back together again. You can only put it in one way because of the little screen intake. It only goes into one little notch on the side. Push it in. I also changed out my fuel regulator right here at the same time, just to make sure I'm getting good fuel pressure. Don't know if that one's working or not, but the other one, you can just test it by blowing on them, but I got a new one. It was only a few bucks. So it's really ready to go back in, but still got to figure out this stupid gas gauge. And now that I've got that all pulled apart, I can also drop the tank and do the other cables. Alright, so I got the gas tank kind of half out at this point. Nice to have a motorcycle lift with the two panels to hold it. There's just 4 bolts that hold the tank up. They're not terribly difficult to get to, although there are some hoses in the way. I think they're air conditioning hoses that are the most things in the way. You do have to remove that air conditioning joint right there. There's one little screw. Pull that down, get out of the way. You definitely can't get that far side out, or the driver's side out. You can't drop the whole thing straight down, so you got to drop it this end first. And the fuel filler, pretty easy to disconnect. It's just got a little screw-on connector. Pulled that thing right off, easy enough. You definitely want to be low on gas when you do this kind of thing, but not the worst thing in the world to get this done. I'll see if I can get around and show you where the cable goes. All right, so I'm here on the passenger side. Here's the cable. You do have to undo this one, this bracket, in order to drop the tank. It's in the way. And then the cable comes up right here, and the first connector's literally right here. And then let's see if you can see it up there. Oh, there it is. So then this is the second connector right there, the third, that you can't get to without the tank in the way. And then there's the little grommet, pops right through into the center console. So it does the same thing on both sides. So with this drop down, it will be really easy to swap it out. So we'll get this one done and then worry on about the driver's side. All right, so there's the old and the new cables. They all match up. The new ones come with the brackets. You just got to reuse the bolts. And I think the telltale thing is it's got the little boot, and it just collapses really easy. Here's the old one. I literally can't move the thing. It won't collapse no matter what I do. So it's just all rusted. The boot is all broken on here, so water gets in there, then it gets up in the cable, and then it freezes and thaws and everything else, and it just goes. So there's a new one. So it's obviously swapping them out, not the hardest thing in the world. Same bolts, same locations. Just got to feed it up now and tuck it through, and we'll have this side in. All right, so I pushed both cables through, got the old ones out. So these are the two new ones. They feed through the little holes, poke them out. These little brackets here on both sides, it's just a little 10 millimeter nut here, and it just releases. So you just, you know, put the two little tab thingies in there, and then lock these two down, and now I can go underneath, put those rubber grommets in, start working it all through, and getting it all bolted up. So but these all got locked into place so the cables can move freely. Yay! Alright, so here we are underneath the car. There's my motorcycle jack, which has worked out perfect for this gas tank, and you have the gas tank there. I only had to lower the far side. This side has got a big hose here, and I'm not sure exactly what kind of hose it is. It's a radiator, I think. And it kind of got in the way quite a bit. So I just lowered the one side. On the far side, dropped down much easier. I was able to reach through and get this side. This one's in. Still got to do this one here. Getting it back in, there's just 4 tabs. There's 4 bolts for the tank, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. Back one's super easy to get to. Front ones, you got to get past these hoses here to get to it, but they're not too bad. And but there are some tabs. The tabs are a little hard. It won't lift straight in. The tabs are above the pipes, so you have to tip it, angle it, insert it, like you do with most things, like gas tanks and things like that. So it's in. I've got it lifted up. I'm just starting to put these bolts back in. Then I can finish up the cables, attach them, and I should be good to go. But first I'll get all the bolts put in, and then we'll get this thing finished up. Alright, so I've got everything bolted up underneath. Everything's attached. They're repinned to the end of the little brake springs. Now we can come in here and do the adjustments here. So I just finished adjusting these, so these were pretty slack. What you do is you pull this up a few times, tighten it up, and then let it go, and then tighten this using the little locking nut right here. So that just tensions this to the right amount. So right now, pull it up. Nice standard kind of lock spot, and my wheels are locked solid as could be. And then if I come back, release it, spin away. So I think I've got it pretty good and balanced. It's even between the two right there. So one last thing is just putting this little lock nut down. And once I get that lock nut down, that is done. Now I still got to close that up, and then I can take it out for a little test spin. Alright, she's sitting idling in neutral, rock solid on our driveway, which has got a decent little slant to it. So parking brake taken care of. So I think my very last thing I have to figure out is check engine light before I can get this thing smog tested and safety tested and be legal, and then I can start really doing some fun stuff. Get to the fun stuff rather than all this hard stuff. So another project down. She's running smooth. Filter must be okay. So I think we're in good shape.